Lately, I've been playing a lot of Caves of Qud. It's a lot of fun, and I think more people should check it out. I like games that let you do whatever the fuck you want to do in them. I also like games that don't suck. Caves of Qud is a game that falls into both categories. It's actually a straight up masterpiece. But I think a lot of people are quite literally immediately put off by it when they see the first screenshot. And you know what? That's completely understandable. I mean, look at this. If you've never seen this game before, you might believe that it was created sometime in the MS-DOS era of PC games. But no, Caves of Qud began development in 2007, and what spawned from that is truly one of the most insane experiences I think I have ever underwent. Okay, to those of you who saw the first frame of gameplay and began to irrationally froth at the mouth, bear with me here. Caves of Qud is an indie game developed by Freehold Games that spent a lot of time in Steam's early access. If you've seen any of my videos in the past, you might know that I'm generally very wary about early access games. Caves of Qud is, and I do not say this lightly, one of the best games I've ever played, if not the best. It's just perfect. But unfortunately, most people look at this game and their brain short circuits. And I genuinely don't blame them, but listen, come here. I promise it is absolutely worth the time it takes to learn this game. And I also promise that it takes a lot less time than you might think. While it may seem like an absolute brick wall at first, this game is very well optimized for the player and does everything it can to integrate you into understanding the game as it's presented. Every action you can do has a specific key binding, and the game's inner logic is very sturdy. As an example, there are different bindings for attacking depending on who you want to kill. One input attacks the nearest hostile enemy, and the other attacks whatever or whomever you're pointing at. This might sound arbitrary, but it's actually hugely relevant to gameplay. Character sheets are pretty clear on what is available to you, and your equipment screen is like any other RPG, except for the fact that all your limbs and hands will have equipment slots. Yes, you heard that right. I did say all limbs, not just your arms, hands, legs, and feet, but any extras of those that you might have. Beyond that, there's systems for bartering, exchanging secrets, curing fungal infections, and of course, hunger and thirst. Every now and then, after having played the game for a decent bit, I discover a new system within the game that I had no idea existed. And I didn't need to, but rewriting history to make my enemies like me and a wall's melting point are nonetheless additions that serve to add nearly as many layers of depth as there are layers of Qud. When I mentioned before that you can do whatever the fuck you want in this game, here's what I mean. One system in Qud is cooking and gathering new recipes. If you have a certain skill, you can concoct a new recipe once a day by cooking with specific ingredients you have in your inventory. You can then cook it anytime you want, so long as you have the ingredients. If you decide to add some cloning drought and another liquid called convalescence, you can create a meal that will cause a few clones to sprout from your body. They might not have your equipment, but they do immediately join your party and are now permanent fixtures until they die or get stuck somewhere. If you have enough ingredients, you can send your mighty clone army to its never-ending death because you can just keep eating the food and popping more clones out of your skull. There are fungi that secrete lava that you can walk up to, bend down, and take a big drink from. This kills you instantly, but you get a unique death message and an achievement. One time, I came across a completely impassable door with no way of opening it. So, I hooked it up to a machine in my inventory and gave the door sentience so that it would move out of the way. Sounds great, right? So, what's the catch? When talking about the game's mechanics, we have to address the four-trunked elephant in the room. Caves of Qud is a full-fledged RPG with very in-depth character customization and a long main quest that will take you all over this crazy world full of alien dangers, both real and imagined. You will be tasked with going through absolutely hellish perils with horrifying creatures that want nothing more than to eat your face. Your journey will be arduous, long, and full of complete random bullshit that will melt you into a puddle or nuggetize you by blasting off all your limbs because you decided to round the wrong blind corner. Caves of Qud's default game mode is permadeath. You get one life. This is a roguelike. Wait, don't leave. I promise it's not so bad. When I first downloaded Qud, this was the only way to play it. I never got far. Much later in development, they added a more forgiving mode called roleplay. It's not particularly forgiving, but it's definitely not permadeath. When you make it to a prominent location, a checkpoint will save that basically acts as your save state for the next time you die. This is definitely less infuriating than completely losing a character, but holy shit, does the main quest sometimes take you hours away from a settlement. There were times I'd die only to be sent back basically my whole session's worth of playtime. Definitely set the game aside for a day or two after that, but Caves of Qud's siren song is powerful. Despite how much I desperately wanted to stick my whole arm through my computer screen and just never play the game again, I just couldn't put it down. It hooked me unlike any game ever has in the past, and it looks like this? Alright, now I know the next question already on your brain. You can feel it sliding across your tongue, but I'll ask it for you. What the hell is so great about Caves of Qud? Good lord, where do I even start? Okay, let's start with the basics. This is Earth. Just a really long time into the future. I legitimately cannot stress how far into the future this game takes place. For context, the time period the game takes place in has not had a sultan, powerful rulers of Qud that have passed into legend, in 1,000 years. Before the Sultanate, which lasted for thousands of years collectively, a race of people known only as the Eaters of the Earth ruled the planet and traveled the cosmos for what is implied to be hundreds of thousands of years. Conversations with certain characters will reveal that Qud was exposed after an all-encompassing ice age had passed. It's a world where fallen and forgotten technological marvels carved out of chrome litter the landscape. A place where you can fall into a hole and find yourself in an endlessly churning hell machine that produces ungodly, caustic chemicals and spits out into pitch-black subterranean layers of unexplored cavern. There's a temple in the desert that could possibly be the skeleton of a cosmic being, or just an old oil rig. There's a lot of room for nuance and things like that, and Qud tends to leave small questions like this open-ended. It's part of what makes the world so intriguing to come back to. Some mysteries and lore elements will be analyzed from different sources, like NPCs or books, leading to multiple interpretations of one aspect of Qud. A lot of mysteries, however, are just presented as they are, leaving tons of speculation that serves to sink you further into the Caves of Qud. Speaking of NPCs you can interact with, all of the humanoid denizens of Qud are either so mutated that they barely resemble humans, or are so integrated with extra-dimensional technology that they barely resemble humans. Beyond that, you got all your standard folks. You know, all the unshelled reptiles, antelopes, and newly sentient beings that you'll be coming across in your travels. And yes, those are all real factions in this game. There's a lot of factions. They can all have different opinions of you based on actions you take and named targets you've killed. You see, in every world, each named character gets a random set of actions associated with them that have affected their reputation with various factions. And actions that you take can directly affect these factions' reputations with you. You can make just about any enemy faction in the game absolutely head over heels for you, and can make just about any friendly one want to see both of your heads skewered on a pike. A brief example of how this mechanic alone can lead to utter and complete chaos. It's not entirely unheard of for characters in any village to be generated with the tag hated by wardens, for whatever reason it might be. This leads the warden of the settlement, the station guard, and protector of the people to attack said character on sight. When this happens, the citizens don't typically care for the fact that the guard that's supposed to protect the settlement has gone rogue, and they will, in turn, bum rush the warden. This exterminates the population of the entire village. Fucking with a warden is not advised. Keep in mind, this can happen in any village you wander into, pre-generated or randomized, and that includes the starting village of Joppa, where it's recommended new players start their journey. The randomization found in every world is kinda baffling. I've never played a game where the world's lore is completely randomized based on a few set parameters. One run might have statues and effigies of a specific sultan, and another run might feature a completely different sultanate that doesn't include the previously encountered one. The feats attributed to them are all randomized as well, except for Reshef. I won't hit you with that one today. Not only that, even things like the recipes for antidotes are randomized each run, and you'll need to find a copy of a specific book that will reveal to you the cures for your specific illness. Specific. Okay, next up, I want to talk about the music. Good God, the music in this game. Caves of Qud's music is essential to the immersion and experience of playing. I play this game a lot on my Steam Deck. Even then, I try to keep the volume up at least loud enough that I can hear the soundtrack. I'm not sure when the last time was I played a game where the music and game go so hand in hand. Qud's sprite work and art might look nice, but the view is simple in its presentation. So the rest of the immersion has to be carried by the music, and holy shit does it step up to the challenge. Going through a massive subterranean cave system? Stumble upon a market/religious site in the desert? Some of it is downright terrifying. Word of advice, don't leave the title screen on for too long with the volume up too loud. Dull ambience will often explode into otherworldly cacophonies. I have on more than one occasion had my mind blown by the music. I have read people say that there are parts of the soundtrack that make them weep. That doesn't happen very often. I legitimately didn't listen to the full soundtrack before I finished the game because it felt like it would be a spoiler. It makes me actually sad that so many people haven't heard this game's full soundtrack within the context of the game. Because if you can believe it, only around 1.5% of players actually finished this game, which I know this section has been about the music, but that is a damn travesty. Some of the most fun or out there things you can do in Qud have been done by a fraction of the player base. There are things in this game that I am convinced have only been experienced by less players than you can count on one hand. It is impossible to talk about Caves of Qud without talking about the way it looks. But I have intentionally waited until this far into the video to bring it up in depth. I know the way it looks is literally the impression of the game, but I just wanted to show that there's a lot more to this game beyond how it looks. For starters, I'm very much aware that what you're seeing here is a confusing mess, but I promise you, it's actually very intuitive. There's a lot going on at any given time, so the simplicity of the in-game graphics combined with the text log to the right work together well to complete the whole picture of what's occurring. Since the game is turn-based, lots of things can happen within the span of one turn, and trying to render that out in intricate animations wouldn't only be pointless, it'd simply be too much. The text box isn't a mandatory read either. It can tell you what items you pass over on the ground, sources of damage, and when one of your potentially many limbs are cut off. But you don't have to read it for every line of "you attacked with your iron sword for 5 damage," or whether the crocodile ripping apart the muscles in your legs bites you or smacks you with its tail. The variation is appreciated, but you probably won't be paying too much attention to it. That's not to say you should ignore it outright, because it is a log of every action other than movement taken during the current turn. Also, it could be way worse. This is what the game looked like in alpha. Looking at the sprites and environments, things are kept pretty simple, but unique enough that everything stands out. Colors are vibrant and varied, and the pixel art is gorgeous. However, most of the time, these sprites are simple for the sake of how the game is presented. The real representation of what we're looking at is expanded upon using the look command on anything that we can see. Anything with a sprite has a description. The walls in this game have lore. So do the trees. Looking at random NPCs can reveal they're wearing an engraved set of armor depicting a historical event that gets added to your journal. Looking at the Elder of Joppa reveals that even though his sprite looks like this, he's actually got another set of arms that he keeps held above his head to form an odd pattern with his fingers and palms, and he has a giant tail. The writing in Caves of Qud is flowery and can be really hard to parse sometimes, but there are times when it is just downright poetic, even if it's absolutely disgusting at the same time. A slug has grown too large for its anatomy to know what to do. Bubbles of stinking broth pop over breathing pores the size of elbows, and a fifth phase of trash-like matter leaks out its crusty mantle and down the sharp keel of its back. Where nature had the decency to end the body of the common slug in a muscular foot, Slog's tail is instead a sphincter-choked bilge hose that it uses to spew foul water funk about its surroundings. Escargot, anyone? Okay, so now you get the gist of what Qud is, but what does a typical game of it look like? For starters, you'll be creating your character. Here is where you can choose between playing as a mutated human with access to a myriad of beneficial and negative mutations that you can select, and a truekin, which don't have mutations but have access to an assortment of different implants. After that, you'll select a starting village and it's off from there. As mentioned before, it is recommended new players start in Joppa, and even as someone who's played this game a lot, I usually start here too. Joppa is nice because it gives you access to a few quests that are unavailable otherwise. These quests range from kickstarting the main quest, a reason to travel to new areas, and to introduce introduce some of the game's more static lore. If you start in a randomly generated village, you can still access the main story, but it will be behind a procedurally generated quest you obtain from the village's elder. There's not nearly as much setup or introduction, which is why Joppa is so important to understanding the weird world you find yourself journeying through. Aside from following the main quest, which will take you all over the world, the game is largely exploring and finding cool shit to get into. Traversing the world can be done screen by screen, or you can move around the world map to get around quicker. If you step on a tile where a dungeon, lair, rare merchant, or other point of interest is generated, you'll get a notification asking if you'd like to explore. Dungeons are largely where you're going to see this game's namesake, the actual Caves of Qud. They go very deep, and technically, you can descend through hundreds of floors of cavern, and they get progressively harder and stranger the deeper you go. I don't want to get into heavy spoilers for the plot in this video, but I do want to leave you with something to intrigue you even more if you're still on the fence. In Joppa, one of the intro quests to the main quest is given by a man named Argive. He's a member of the Mechanimist faction and has tasked you with helping him complete a new device he is working on. After venturing to the nearby rust wells to collect some wire, he completes his new invention. After this, you learn that the device was a receiver for an odd signal that he detected. He doesn't know where it's coming from or what exactly is being transmitted, but it's definitely repeating on a loop. To discover the origins of the signal, he sends you off to meet with the head of his order. This is the direct onset of the main quest. One other quest in Joppa has you venturing to the nearby location of Red Rock to hunt down a creature that's been eating the villagers' crops. You eventually find it in a subterranean lair, and it looks like a spider straight out of an Elder God's nightmare. You take the horrid little thing's corpse back to Joppa and present it to the Elder. He then informs you that this is what's known as a Gershling, and they haven't been seen in Qud in a very, very long time. Because of its presence, he concludes that the Gyre, a series of plagues that struck Qud in the past, is starting to widen again. Keep in mind, the Gyre is the reason why almost all the water you'll come across in Qud is undrinkable salt water. Whatever it means that it's widening again can't be a good thing. And with that, I hope you are intrigued. While the start of the story might sound simple, I promise you the twists and turns it takes are wild, almost unpredictable. But doesn't that just sum up the entirety of Caves of Qud? After all that, I'd just like to reiterate what I said at the beginning of the video. This game is an absolute masterpiece. While it's a niche masterpiece, I believe that it's so good that it completely transcends that. It's a game unlike anything else I've ever played, and when I say that, I include the entirety of the story as well. You'll want to tear your hair out. You'll have questions upon questions upon questions. You'll argue with asshole plants and combat alien gods intent on consuming reality. But you'll never want to stop until you're finally at the end. If any of this sounds even slightly interesting to you, I implore you to try Caves of Qud. If the unforgiving nature of it is kind of keeping you away from it, there is absolutely no shame in playing the more forgiving game modes. I wouldn't have ever beaten the game without roleplay mode. I'll say that right now. And if that still sounds like too much for you, there's an even more forgiving mode where basically every faction starts with neutral reputation, so there are way less fights. Thanks for watching. If it wasn't clear, I absolutely adore this game, and I'm really glad I got the chance to talk about it. Remember to leave a like if you liked it, and I think if you made it this far, you liked it at least a little bit. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on the game and any interesting journeys you've gotten into while exploring Qud. Do not forget to subscribe. My goal for the year of 500 subs has already been surpassed, but I want to see how many we can get before the year ends. So yes, subscribe. There's lots more to come, I promise. All that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!